The Zalreen commander's claw hovered inches from Lieutenant Maya Hudson's throat when the ship's intercom crackled to life. Station security to Docking Bay 7. We have a situation. Captain Derek Walsh didn't wait for permission. He moved. The alien's three eyes tracked him as he crossed the negotiation chamber aboard the orbital platform, but Walsh kept his expression flat. Diplomatic incident be damned. The Zalreen had Maya pinned against the bulkhead, and every human instinct in his body screamed at the violation. "Release her," Walsh said. His voice carried no threat, just certainty. The Zalreen's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Your species does not dictate terms here, mammal. This female interrupted sacred commercial discourse," she sneezed. Walsh replied. "An insult most grievous." Maya's eyes met Walsh's. No fear there, just cold calculation and the barest shake of her head. "Don't escalate." The mission mattered more than her dignity, more than the bruise forming on her collarbone where the alien's grip had tightened. Walsh took another step forward anyway. The other Zalreen in the room shifted, 7 of them total, each standing near 8 feet tall, their exoskeletons gleaming under the station's harsh lighting. The trade agreement they'd been negotiating for 6 months sat on the table between them, unsigned. Humanity needed the mining rights to the Kepler belt, needed the resources to fuel the colony ships, needed this deal. The commander's grip tightened. Maya winced. Walsh's hand dropped to his sidearm. "You wouldn't dare," the Zalreen hissed. "We are a protected species under Galactic Council law. We are classified as apex negotiators. Touch us and your kind will be sanctioned for a generation. Probably," Walsh agreed, his fingers wrapped around the grip. "But you'll still be dead." The station's gravity fluctuated, just a quarter-second pulse, but enough to make everyone in the room stumble. Everyone except Walsh, who'd felt the subtle vibration through the deck plating 2 seconds earlier and braced himself. The Zalreen's claw slipped. Maya drove her knee upward into the joint where the alien's leg met its thorax. The crack echoed through the chamber. The commander released her and staggered back, ichor leaking from the damaged limb. "You dare?" The alien's translator struggled with the rage in its voice. "You dare strike a Zalreen trade minister?" Walsh drew his weapon and leveled it at the commander's central eye. "Touch her again," he said quietly, "and we'll wear your teeth as bracelets." The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the station's alarms began to scream. The explosion tore through Docking Bay 7 with enough force to shake the entire station. Emergency bulkheads slammed down across 3 sections, and the lights flickered to red emergency mode. Walsh kept his weapon trained on the Zalreen commander even as the deck tilted beneath them. "What did you do?" "Nothing." The alien's mandibles spread wide in genuine shock. "This was not our doing." Maya pulled herself upright, her hand already on her comm unit. "Captain, I'm reading a massive hull breach in the commercial district. Atmosphere venting from multiple sectors." "Sabotage?" Walsh asked. "Worse." She looked up from her scanner, face pale. The Krillian freighter that docked 2 hours ago just detonated its core. The blast took out 6 other ships and ruptured the station's main fuel line, the Zalreen commander's translator crackled. "The Krylians. They swore vendetta against my house 3 cycles ago. They knew we would be here." "They just murdered 400 people to get to you," Walsh said flatly. 417, Maya corrected, her voice tight. "And the count's rising. The blast compromised the medical bay. Life support is failing in sections 8 through 12. Walsh holstered his weapon. The trade agreement didn't matter anymore. The diplomatic tensions didn't matter. People were dying, and he'd be damned if he stood around arguing while it happened. "How many rescue ships in range?" he asked. Maya's fingers flew across her scanner. 3, but they're all Galactic Council certified vessels. Protocol requires Council authorization before they can dock during an emergency. How long for authorization? Minimum 2 hours for the paperwork to process. Walsh felt something cold settle in his chest. 2 hours. The damaged sections would be vacuumed in 20 minutes. The Zalreen commander made a chittering sound. "This is not your concern, human. Your ship was not damaged. Take your female and leave while you can." Not happening, Walsh said. He tapped his comm. Walsh to the Defiant. Prepare for emergency rescue operations. His first officer's voice came through immediately. Sir, we're not equipped for station rescue. We're a light cruiser, not a medical ship. I'm aware, Commander. How many can we fit in our cargo bays if we purge known essentials? A pause. Maybe 200 if we pack them in tight. But Captain, Galactic Council regulations explicitly forbid unilateral rescue operations without proper authorization. We could lose our exploration license. Noted. Begin preparations anyway. Maya grabbed his arm. Derek, he's right. If we violate Council protocols, Earth loses its seat at the negotiating table. We'll be classified as a rogue species. Then we'll be a rogue species with a clear conscience, Walsh replied. He turned to the Zalreen commander. Your people have ships docked here. Are you going to help, or are you going to let those miners suffocate while you file the correct forms? The alien's three eyes studied him. You would risk your species standing for strangers? We would risk a lot more than that. The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. A decision being made. Then he turned to his subordinates and barked something in his native tongue. 3 of them immediately rushed from the room. Our vessels will assist, the commander said. But this will have consequences, human. The Council does not forgive protocol violations. Add it to my tab, Walsh said. He was already moving toward the door. Maya, coordinate with Station Ops. I want a full casualty report and locations of all survivors. Priority to medical cases and children. On it. They ran through corridors that were already hazed with smoke. The station's automated system struggled to contain the fires spreading from the docking bay. Walsh passed a viewport and saw the carnage outside. The Corellian ship had been massive, and its destruction had turned the commercial district into a debris field of twisted metal and shattered glass. People stumbled through the corridors in various states of shock and injury. A Diluvian merchant clutched her offspring to her chest, her translator broken and sparking. A human engineer sat against a wall, his leg bent at an impossible angle. Walsh wanted to stop, wanted to help each of them, but he needed to reach the command deck first. The station's administrator met them at the operations center. Commander Lisa Grant looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past 10 minutes. Her uniform was torn, and blood ran from a cut above her eye. Captain Walsh, she said, thank God. We need every ship we have. You'll get them. What's the situation? Grant pulled up a holographic display. Red sections bloomed across the station schematic like infection spreading through tissue. We lost main power to the western arm. Backup generators are holding, but they won't last long. I have 3042 confirmed casualties, and at least 600 more trapped in sealed sections. The Council relief ships are requesting clearance codes. How long? They say 90 minutes minimum. Walsh's jaw tightened. These people don't have 90 minutes. I know. Grant's voice cracked slightly. But if I authorize non-council ships to dock without proper clearance, I'll be court-martialed. The regulations exist for a reason. We can't just ignore centuries of established protocol. Walsh stepped closer. Commander Grant. Lisa, look at me. She did. In 90 minutes, everyone in those sealed sections will be dead. You know it. I know it. The Council knows it. They just don't care because following procedure is more important than saving lives. He gestured at the schematic. We can save them. Right now. But only if you give the order. Grant stared at the display, at the red sections, at the numbers climbing in the casualty counter. If I do this, she whispered, my career is over. Probably, Walsh agreed. But you'll be able to sleep at night. Grant closed her eyes, took a breath, then opened them again with steel in her gaze. All ships, she announced over the station-wide comm. This is Commander Grant. I'm authorizing emergency rescue protocol override. Any vessel capable of life support is cleared to dock and extract survivors. Ignore all Council restrictions. That's a direct order. Walsh felt a grim smile tug at his lips. Welcome to the Rogue Species Club, Commander. Shut up and start saving lives, Captain. The Defiant's cargo bay had never been designed to hold living people. Walsh watched through the viewport as his crew ripped out supply crates and equipment racks to make room. Medic teams set up triage stations on the deck plating while engineers rigged emergency oxygen distribution systems. First shuttle inbound, Maya reported from beside him. 32 survivors, mostly miners from the lower habitat rings, Walsh nodded. Tell them to keep cycling. We don't stop until every section is clear. The shuttle landed hard, its hull scorched from passing through the debris field. The rear hatch dropped and people stumbled out. A Torvian family. 3 human dock workers. A Selkian doctor carrying 2 injured children in her 4 arms. Lieutenant Frank Wen directed them toward the triage stations with calm efficiency. Easy now. You're safe. Medical team will check you over. Just keep moving, Walsh's comm crackled. Captain, this is engineering. We've got a problem. Go ahead, Peters. The oxygen recyclers are already maxed out and we've only taken on 40 people. If we pack in 200 like you wanted, the CO2 buildup will kill them in 3 hours. Walsh felt the weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. Always another problem. Always another impossible choice. Can you boost the recycler efficiency? Not without risking a system failure. But I might be able to vent excess CO2 directly to space if I reroute the environmental controls. Do it. And Peters, make sure it works. We're not saving these people just to suffocate them. Understood, sir. Maya touched his arm. Derek, you need to see this. She pulled up a feed from one of the station's external cameras. A Galactic Council enforcement ship had arrived and was broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention all vessels. This is Council Enforcer Ship Tribunal's voice. You are in violation of emergency response protocols. Cease rescue operations immediately and await proper authorization. Walsh felt anger flash through him. They've got to be kidding. They're powering weapons, Maya said quietly. They're going to force compliance. Before Walsh could respond, the Zaurine commander's voice came through on a secure channel. Captain Walsh, we see the Enforcer ship. Our vessels are experiencing similar threats. What are you gonna do? The alien's mandibles clicked. Continue rescue operations. Let them shoot if they dare. The political fallout of firing on rescue ships will destroy their credibility. They might do it anyway. Then they do it. But we do not abandon the innocent because bureaucrats wave weapons out. Walsh felt a surge of respect for the alien who'd had Maya by the throat 20 minutes ago. Agreed. We keep going. The tribunal's voice broadcast again. Final warning. All unauthorized vessels will be fired upon in 60 seconds. Walsh switched to shipwide comm. All hands, this is the captain. We have an enforcer ship threatening to open fire if we don't abandon rescue operations. I want you to know that I will not order you to risk your lives. Anyone who wants to leave the ship and seek safety has my blessing. No questions asked. No black marks on your record. Ha 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 ha. He waited. The ship was silent. Then Nguyen's voice came through from the cargo bay. With respect, sir, we didn't join Starfleet to abandon people in danger. Engineering agrees, Peters added. We're not leaving. One by one, every department reported in. Every single crew member chose to stay. Walsh felt his throat tighten. Thank you. All of you. Now let's show the Council what humanity thinks of their protocols. Continue rescue operations. The Tribunal's voice fired. Not at the Defiant. At the Zaurine transport ship pulling survivors from Section 9. The plasma bolt struck the transport's aft shields and dissipated in a shower of energy. The Zaurine ship didn't even slow down. It completed its extraction and broke away from the station. Survivors secured in its hold. They're insane, Maya breathed. They actually fired on our rescue ship. Broadcast that footage on all Council frequencies, Walsh ordered. Let everyone see what the enforcers just did. The political implications would be catastrophic for the Council. Firing on ships conducting humanitarian rescue was a violation of their own charter. But Walsh didn't care about politics right now. He cared about the 300 people still trapped in dying sections of the station. Captain, Nguyen called from the cargo bay. We've got a problem. Section 12 just lost structural integrity. We have maybe 5 minutes before total collapse. But there are 60 people sealed inside a maintenance hub with no way out. Can we reach them? Not through normal docking procedures. The airlocks are jammed. and the hull is too unstable. We'd need to cut through directly. Walsh pulled up the schematic. The maintenance hub was surrounded by compromised structure. One wrong move and the whole section would tear itself apart. What about emergency extraction pods? They launched theirs during the initial blast. It malfunctioned and crashed into the debris field. No survivors. Walsh's mind raced through options. All of them bad. Then an idea formed. Dangerous. Probably suicidal, but possible. Maya, how close can we bring the Defiant to Section 12 without destabilizing it further? She ran calculations. 30 meters. Maybe less if you're feeling lucky. I don't believe in luck. I believe in skill. He switched channels. Engineering. I need you to prepare the magnetic grapples and extend the airlock tube to maximum range. Sir, that tube is only rated for stable connections. If the station shifts even slightly, we'll tear right off. Then we better hope it doesn't shift. How long to prep? 3 minutes. You have 2. Helm, bring us in close to Section 12. I want our airlock aligned with their maintenance hub access point. The Defiant maneuvered through the debris field with precision that would have made Walsh proud under different circumstances. His helmsman, Lieutenant Chris Bennett, navigated around spinning wreckage and venting atmosphere with steady hands. 20 meters, Bennett called out. 15. 10. Hold position. Holding. But sir, the station section is rotating. We've got maybe 3 minutes before the stress tears it apart. Peters, extend the tube now. The airlock tube shot out from the Defiant's hull and locked onto the maintenance hub's emergency hatch. Walsh heard the magnetic seals engage with a thunk that resonated through the ship's frame. Connection secured, Peters reported, but it's unstable. We're reading massive stress on the coupling. Open the hatch. Get those people aboard. The maintenance hub hatch cycled open. People began streaming through the tube, running for their lives as the station groaned around them. Walsh watched the count. 15, 20, 30. How many left? He demanded. 30 more, Nguyen replied. But they've got wounded. It's slowing them down. The station section lurched. The Defiant's hull groaned as the magnetic grapples strained to maintain position. Sir, we're losing the connection, Bennett said. The rotation is increasing. If we don't disconnect in the next 60 seconds, we'll be pulled into the collapse. Walsh watched people struggle through the tube. Saw a man carrying a child. Saw a woman helping an injured friend. Saw humanity and hope and desperation all mixed together. We hold position, he said. Captain, we hold. 45, 50, 55. Last one's through, Noon shouted. Seal the hatch! Bennett, break us free! Emergency thrust. The Defiant's engines roared to life. The magnetic grapples released, and the ship pulled away just as Section 12 tore itself apart. Debris peppered their shields, but they were clear. Walsh allowed himself one breath of relief. Then he turned to Maya. How many more sections need evacuation? She checked her scanner, then looked up with something like awe in her eyes. None. We got 'em all. The Defiant's medical bay overflowed into 3 adjacent compartments. Walsh walked through the chaos of treatment stations and saw his crew performing miracles with limited resources. A ship's medic who normally treated minor injuries now stabilized a Torvian with internal bleeding. An engineering tech rigged a specialized oxygen mask for a Selkian whose respiratory system couldn't process human standard atmosphere. Captain, Commander Grant's voice came through on his personal comm. We need to talk. Walsh found her in the Defiant's small conference room. She looked worse than before. Exhaustion written in every line of her face. 2 Galactic Council representatives stood beside her, their ceremonial robes somehow still pristine despite the disaster. Captain Walsh, the taller one began. His translator rendered his voice in clipped, formal tones. I am Adjudicator Ven of the Compliance Bureau. You and Commander Grant are hereby ordered to surrender your commands and submit to immediate detention. People are still dying on that station, Walsh said flatly. We can discuss consequences after we finish saving lives. The rescue operations are concluded. Council relief ships have arrived and taken over stabilization efforts. Walsh glanced at Grant. She gave a barely perceptible nod. The station was secure. The immediate crisis had passed. Fine, Walsh said. What are the charges? Adjudicator Venn produced a data tablet. Violation of docking protocols. Ignoring lawful orders from council enforcers. Conducting rescue operations without proper certification. Shall I continue? The penalties for these infractions include immediate revocation of your exploration licenses, criminal prosecution, and potential sanctions against Earth itself. Venn's expression was unreadable. You have committed grave offenses against galactic order. We saved 643 lives, Maya interjected from the doorway. Walsh hadn't heard her enter. Does that count for anything? The law exists for reasons beyond your comprehension, human. Without order, without protocol, civilization collapses into chaos. Without compassion, Walsh said quietly, civilization isn't worth preserving. Venn stiffened. You dare lecture me on Adjudicator. The second council representative spoke for the first time. She was smaller, her robes marked with symbols Walsh didn't recognize. Perhaps we should discuss this matter in private. Venn turned to her. Arbiter Sela, these humans have violated. I am aware of what they have violated. I am also aware that the Tribunal's voice fired upon unarmed rescue ships conducting humanitarian operations. That footage is currently being broadcast across every council world. Her eyes fixed on Walsh. Captain, would you and your crew be willing to provide testimony regarding the Enforcer ship's actions? Walsh understood immediately. Politics. Always politics. The council was eating itself over the Enforcer's catastrophic mistake, and they needed scapegoats, or allies, preferably both. What are you offering in exchange? All charges dropped. Full pardons for everyone involved in the unauthorized rescue. And formal recognition of Earth's right to conduct emergency operations under extreme circumstances. That's not enough, Walsh said. Venn made a sound like choking. You dare demand more? The regulations that almost killed 600 people today are broken. They need to be changed. Emergency response protocols should prioritize saving lives, not filing paperwork. Arbiter Sela studied him for a long moment. You want us to rewrite laws that have stood for millennia because one human captain disagrees with them? I want you to rewrite laws that got people killed. What happened today will happen again unless something changes. Impossible, Venn snapped. The council will do whatever prevents another public relations disaster, Sela interrupted. She turned back to Walsh. I can get you a formal review of emergency protocols. Nothing more. The wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly, Captain. Then we'll need to grease them. Walsh pulled up his datapad and began transmitting files. I'm sending you detailed reports from every ship that participated in today's rescue. Human ships, Zalreen ships, even a Diluvian merchant vessel that wasn't equipped for rescue but helped anyway. You'll see that multiple species, with different governments and different interests, all chose to ignore council protocols in favor of saving lives. Arbiter Sela's expression shifted as she reviewed the data. This is quite comprehensive. We're thorough. You'll also find testimony from the survivors. 643 beings who would be dead if we'd waited for proper authorization. Walsh leaned forward. Use that data. Show the council that their precious protocols are killing the people they're supposed to protect. You're asking me to wage a political battle that could take years. I'm asking you to do the right thing. How long it takes is up to you. Venn moved to object, but Sela silenced him with a gesture. Very well, Captain. I will present your case to the council and push for reform. But understand that change at this level is never guaranteed. Understood. But we had to try. Sela gathered her robes and moved toward the door. Then she paused and looked back at Walsh. Tell me something, Captain. Would you have continued the rescue even if the Tribunal's voice had destroyed your ship? Walsh didn't hesitate. Yes. Why? These people were strangers. Many of them aren't even your species. What compelled you to risk everything for them? Walsh thought about the question, about the families he'd seen stumble through his cargo bay, about the injured children and terrified workers and desperate survivors who just wanted to live. Because someone had to, he said simply. And we were there. Arbiter Sayla smiled, actually smiled. It transformed her entire face. Your species is going to cause us so much trouble, Captain Walsh. I find myself looking forward to it. She left with Ven in tow, the adjudicator still sputtering protests that she ignored completely. Grant slumped into a chair. Did that really just happen? Did we actually win? We didn't win, Walsh said. We just avoided losing. The real fight starts when they try to bury those protocol reforms in committee. Maya crossed her arms. So what do? We keep pushing, keep saving lives, keep showing them that there's a better way. Walsh looked at his crew. And we make sure everyone knows what happened here today. The Council can try to spin this however they want, but the truth is simple. Humans and Zalreen and a dozen other species broke the rules to do what was right. That story needs to spread. The Zalreen, Grant said suddenly. What about them? Where's their commander? As if summoned by the question, Walsh's calm chimed. The Zalreen commander's face appeared on the display. Captain Walsh, I thought you should know that my government has formally protested the Council's handling of this emergency. We are demanding immediate reforms to rescue protocols. That's good news. It is more than that. The Zalreen Collective rarely aligns with other species on political matters. But today we saw humans risk everything for people they had never met. We saw your crew turn a warship into a hospital. We saw your species choose compassion over compliance. The commander's mandible spread in what Walsh had learned was a gesture of respect. The Zalreen remember their debts, Captain. We will support Earth's petition for expanded emergency response authority. Thank you, Commander. That means a great deal. There is one more thing. The alien's three eyes fixed on Walsh. Earlier today, when you drew your weapon in defense of your subordinate, I believed you were bluffing. I thought no human would truly start a war over such a small insult. And now? Now I understand. You were not bluffing. You would have pulled that trigger. The commander paused. Your species terrifies the Council, Captain Walsh. They see your compassion as weakness, your willingness to sacrifice as irrational. They do not understand that these traits make you the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Dangerous how? Because you cannot be controlled. The Council rules through fear and regulation, but you do not fear the consequences of doing what you believe is right. Today proved that. The commander's image flickered as his transmission began to break up. The Council will try to contain you, to limit your influence. They will fail. I look forward to watching it happen. The transmission ended. Maya whistled softly. Well, that was ominous and inspiring at the same time. That's diplomacy for you. Walsh stood and stretched. His back ached and his eyes burned from exhaustion, but there was still work to do. How are the survivors? Stable. We lost 3 during transport, but medical says everyone else should make a full recovery. 3 deaths, 3 people they couldn't save. Walsh felt the weight of those losses settle beside all the others he carried. Make sure their families are notified. And Maya, sir? Good work today. You too, Grant. You both made the hard choice. Grant laughed bitterly. The hard choice that ended my career. Maybe. Or maybe you just started a new one. Walsh headed for the door. The galaxy needs people who will break the rules when the rules are wrong. Something tells me we're going to need all the rule breakers we can get. 3 weeks later, Walsh stood before the Galactic Council's Emergency Session Committee. The chamber was massive, designed to dwarf individual speakers and remind them of their insignificance. Representatives from 47 species sat in tiered galleries that rose into shadows. Walsh wore his dress uniform. Maya stood beside him, along with Grant and the Zalreen commander whose name Walsh had finally learned to pronounce correctly. Vakrath of the Shattered Peaks clan. A warrior diplomat who'd become an unlikely ally. The chair recognizes Captain Derek Walsh of Earth, the presiding counselor announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber. You have requested this session to address proposed reforms to emergency response protocols. You may proceed. Walsh stepped forward. No podium. No notes. Just him and 643 reasons to make this work. 3 weeks ago, a terrorist attack nearly destroyed Orbital Station Perseus. The blast killed 417 people instantly. Another 643 were trapped in failing sections with minutes to live. He paused, letting the numbers sink in. Council relief ships were in range but couldn't respond because protocol required 90 minutes of authorization processing. Those trapped survivors would have died waiting for the paperwork. A counselor from the hierarchy faction stood. Captain Walsh, regulations exist to prevent chaos. Without proper oversight, rescue operations become dangerous and unpredictable. You're right, Walsh said. They do become unpredictable. People make mistakes. Ships collide. Resources get wasted. But you know what's absolutely predictable? Death. When you force rescuers to wait for authorization while people suffocate, the outcome is guaranteed. You violated direct orders from an enforcer ship. That enforcer ship fired on unarmed rescue vessels. Are we really going to pretend that was the correct response? Muttering rippled through the chamber. The footage of the tribunal's voice opening fire had caused a massive scandal. 3 counselors had already resigned over it. Another representative stood. This one was Torvian, his scaled face impassive. Let us speak plainly, Captain. You want the authority to ignore council oversight whenever you deem it necessary. This is not reform. This is anarchy wrapped in noble intentions. What I want, Walsh said carefully, is a system where saving lives takes priority over following procedures. Right now, your regulations treat rescue operations like accounting audits. Check the right boxes, file the right forms. Meanwhile, people die. And your proposal would change this how? Walsh activated the holographic display. Data filled the air between him and the council. These are the rescue protocols used by Earth's emergency services. They're simple. Any ship can respond to a distress call without authorization. Any trained personnel can provide aid without clearance. Accountability comes after the emergency, not during. Madness! Someone shouted from the upper galleries. This would allow any ship to dock anywhere claiming emergency status. So add verification, Walsh countered. Require distress signals to be genuine. Punish false claims severely. Arbiter Sela rose from her seat in the lower tier. Captain Walsh, I have reviewed your proposal extensively. It has merit. However, the Council is concerned about implementation. Your species has been part of the galactic community for less than a century. Many members question whether humanity understands the complexities of maintaining order across thousands of worlds. Walsh smiled thinly. With respect, Arbiter, we understand complexity just fine. What we don't understand is letting that complexity become an excuse for inaction. Vaykrath stepped forward, his exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. If I may address the Council, the Zalreen Collective has observed humanity's emergency response capabilities. They are crude, inefficient, often improvised. His mandibles clicked. They are also remarkably effective. Humans possess a quality that many of us have forgotten. They act. Action without wisdom leads to disaster, the Torvian counselor replied. Wisdom without action leads to mass graves, Vaykrath shot back. The Zalreen Collective supports Earth's proposal. We have already begun implementing similar reforms in our own territory. The chamber erupted in debate. Walsh watched representatives argue, saw factions forming and reforming as political calculations played out in real time. This was the game. The endless negotiation that passed for governance in the Council. Maya leaned close. Think they'll actually vote for it? No idea. But we got them talking. That's something. The presiding counselor called for order. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet. Captain Walsh, this council will take your proposal under advisement. We will reconvene in 6 months to... 6 months? Walsh interrupted. Protocol breach. He didn't care. How many emergencies will happen in 6 months? How many people will die because you need half a year to discuss common sense? Captain, you will respect this chamber's procedures or what? You'll arrest me? Fine, do it. But while you're filing the paperwork for my detention, people are going to keep dying because your system values order over lives. The presiding counselor's face flushed with anger. You are out of line. I'm perfectly in line. That's the problem. Walsh spread his arms. You want to know what humanity thinks of your procedures? We think they're cowardice disguised as wisdom. You've built a system where no one has to make hard choices because the rules make those choices for you. It's safe. It's predictable. It's killing people. This session is adjourned, the counselor declared. Captain Walsh, you are... Actually, Arbiter Sella said quietly, I believe the captain raises a valid concern regarding timeline. Perhaps we could accelerate the review process. Arbiter Sela, the proper channels must be... The proper channels almost cost 600 lives 3 weeks ago. Sela's voice remained calm but carried steel underneath. I move that we establish an emergency committee to fast-track protocol reform. We can have preliminary recommendations within 30 days. Seconded, Vekrath added immediately. The presiding counselor looked trapped. Voting down a motion for faster emergency response would be political suicide, especially with the Enforcer scandal still fresh. Very well, she said stiffly. All in favor? The vote was close, but it passed. Walsh felt something unclenched in his chest. Not victory, just a chance. Sometimes that was enough. The session ended and delegates began filing out. Walsh found himself surrounded by a mix of supporters and critics, each wanting to congratulate or condemn him. He handled it with practiced diplomacy, saying nothing that could be used against Earth later. Then a hand touched his shoulder. Walsh turned to find a human he didn't recognize. Older, silver-haired, wearing a civilian suit that cost more than Walsh's annual salary. Captain Walsh, my name is Richard Cross. I represent the Coalition of Human Colonies. Walsh knew the name. Cross was one of Earth's most powerful political operatives, the kind of man who shaped policy from behind closed doors. Mr. Cross, what can I do for you? Walk with me. They moved to a quiet observation deck overlooking the council complex. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent aluminum. You've made quite an impression, Cross said. Saved 600 lives. Challenged the council's authority. Started a reform movement. All in 3 weeks. Just doing my job. Your job was to negotiate mining rights in the Kepler Belt. Instead, you've become the face of humanity's maverick reputation. Cross's expression was unreadable. Earth's government is divided on whether to celebrate you or court-martial you. Which side are you on? Neither. Both. Cross turned to face Walsh directly. The truth is, Captain, you've forced humanity into a position we weren't ready for. We're the newcomers, the upstarts who don't understand how things work. And now you've made us the species that breaks rules and demands change. Is that a bad thing? It's a dangerous thing. The Council tolerates us because we're small and relatively powerless. But you've shown that we're willing to defy them, willing to choose our values over their authority. Cross paused. That makes us a threat. And the Council doesn't react well to threats. Walsh felt cold certainty settle over him. They're going to try to sideline Earth, isolate us, make an example. They're already doing it. Trade agreements are being delayed. Exploration licenses are under review. 3 colonies have reported increased inspections and compliance checks. Cross's voice softened. What you did was right, Captain. I want you to know that. But righteousness doesn't protect us from consequences. So what do? We prepare. We build alliances with species like the Zalreen, who respect what we did. We document every council overreach and regulatory abuse. We make ourselves too valuable to exclude and too principled to ignore. Cross smiled grimly. And we keep doing what you did on that station. We keep showing the galaxy that humanity acts when others hesitate. That's a long game. It's the only game that matters. The Council has existed for thousands of years. They think in centuries. We need to match that patience while maintaining our urgency. Cross extended his hand. I came here to offer you a position. Earth needs people who understand both the rules and when to break them. People who can navigate galactic politics without losing their principles. Walsh looked at the offered hand, saw the future it represented. Politics and compromise and endless negotiations. Important work. Necessary work. Not his work. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Saya. Cross. But I'm a ship captain. I belong out there. Not in a conference room. Cross lowered his hand, nodding. I expected you'd say that, but the offer stands. When you're ready for a different kind of battle, contact me. He left Walsh alone on the observation deck. Maya found him there an hour later. Hey, we've got new orders. Already? Yep. Earth wants us back in service. Apparently, there's a colony in the Arcturus sector reporting unusual seismic activity. They need a survey ship to investigate. Walsh smiled. Back to the stars. Back to the work he understood. Tell the crew to prep for departure. We leave in 6 hours. You got it. Maya started to leave, then hesitated. Derek, do you think anything we did here will actually change things? Walsh looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, people were living and dying and struggling to survive. Some of them would face emergencies. Some of them would need help. I think we planted a seed, he said. Whether it grows depends on a lot of factors we can't control. But at least it's there. That's all we can do. That's very philosophical for someone who threatened to shoot a diplomat 3 weeks ago. I contain multitudes. Maya laughed, and the sound was good to hear. They'd survived a crisis, challenged an empire, and lived to tell about it. In Walsh's experience, that was about as good as it got. The Defiant launched 6 hours later, carrying a crew that had learned something important. Sometimes the rules were wrong. Sometimes doing the right thing meant risking everything, and sometimes being human meant refusing to accept that bureaucracy mattered more than lives. The colony on Arcturus Prime was dying when the Defiant arrived. Walsh saw it immediately on the scans. The seismic activity wasn't natural. Something underneath the surface was tearing the planet apart from within. The colony's 16,000 inhabitants had maybe 48 hours before the primary settlement collapsed into the expanding fault lines. Get me the colony administrator, Walsh ordered. A woman appeared on screen, her face streaked with dust and exhaustion. Captain Walsh. Thank God. We've been requesting evacuation support for 3 days, but Council Dispatch keeps telling us we're low priority. Low priority? Maya's voice was sharp with disbelief. You've got 16,000 people about to fall into a planetary rift. We're a mining colony. No strategic value. No political significance. The administrator's laugh was bitter. Apparently that means we get to die while the paperwork processes. Walsh felt the familiar anger ignite in his chest. 3 weeks since the station. 3 weeks since the council promised to review emergency protocols. And here was proof that nothing had changed. How many transport ships do you have? He asked. 4. Each can carry maybe 800 people if we pack them beyond safety limits. We've been running evacuations constantly, but it's not enough. What about other ships in the area? 2 council survey vessels passed through yesterday. I requested assistance. They said they couldn't deviate from their assigned routes without authorization. Maya pulled up the sector map. There are at least a dozen commercial freighters within range. If even half of them helped, we could evacuate the entire colony. They won't come without council approval, the administrator said, and the council won't grant approval until the emergency is officially classified as critical. How critical does it need to be? Walsh demanded. The planet is literally tearing itself apart. Critical classification requires verification from a council geological team. Earliest available appointment is in 5 days. Walsh closed his eyes and counted to 10. Didn't help. He still wanted to punch something. Here's what's going to happen, he said. We're going to evacuate your colony, all 16,000 people, and we're going to do it in the next 36 hours. The administrator stared at him. Captain, with all respect, you have 1 ship. Even if you made continuous runs, you couldn't. We won't be alone. Walsh turned to Maya. Send a general distress call on all commercial frequencies. Tell every ship in range that Arcturus Prime needs immediate evacuation assistance. Tell them the council has refused to help. Tell them people are going to die unless someone acts. Sir, that's going to cause a massive incident. The council can file a complaint, send the message. Maya hesitated for just a moment. Then she smiled and began transmitting. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 20 minutes, 11 ships had altered course toward Arcturus Prime. Freighters, passenger liners, a Zalreen military transport that happened to be passing through. Even a Diluvian merchant vessel whose captain still remembered the station rescue. Walsh coordinated the effort from the Defiance Bridge. We've got 36 hours and 16,000 people. That's approximately 450 evacuations per hour. Every ship takes on as many as they can safely hold and makes runs to the nearest habitable station. Questions? Yeah, came a gruff voice over the comm. Captain of a human freighter called the Stormbreaker. What do we do when the Council shows up and orders us to stop? You follow your conscience, Walsh said simply. I can't order civilian ships to violate Council regulations, but I can tell you that if you leave now, people will die. What you do with that information is your choice. Silence on the channel. Then the Stormbreaker's captain laughed. Conscience says we stay. Let's get to work. The evacuation began. Ships descended through Arcturus Prime's deteriorating atmosphere and loaded terrified colonists as the ground shook beneath them. The Defiant made run after run, its cargo bays packed with families clutching whatever possessions they could carry. On the fourth run, the Council showed up. 3 Enforcer ships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began broadcasting, "All vessels, cease evacuation operations immediately. You are conducting unauthorized emergency response in violation of Galactic Council regulations." Walsh ignored them and continued loading colonists. Captain Walsh, this is Enforcer Command. You are ordered to withdraw your ship and cease interference with Council jurisdiction. Enforcer Command, this is Captain Walsh. 16,000 people are about to die. You can help, or you can get out of the way. Your choice. If you do not comply, we will be forced to take action. Walsh switched to a private channel with his crew. Everyone listen carefully. The Enforcers might try to stop us by force. If that happens, I want all non-essential personnel to evacuate to the planet's surface and await pickup by other ships. No one dies for my decisions except me. With respect, sir, Nguyen said from the cargo bay. That's not how this crew works. We're with you. The other officers echoed the sentiment. Walsh felt pride and terror in equal measure. Then let's make this count. Continue evacuation operations. The Enforcers didn't fire. They couldn't, not after the disaster at the station. Instead, they maneuvered to block access to the planet, trying to physically prevent ships from reaching the surface. That's when Vaykrath arrived. The Zalreen battlecruiser dropped out of hyperspace, with its weapon systems very visibly armed. Vaykrath's voice boomed across all frequencies. Enforcer vessels stand down immediately or face engagement from the Zalreen collective military. Commander Vaykrath, this is a Council jurisdiction matter. The collective has no authority. The evacuation will continue. Interfere, and we will consider it an act of war. The Enforcers hesitated. They were outgunned and outmatched. More importantly, they were operating in a legal gray area, while Vaykrath was invoking humanitarian law that superseded Council regulations. They withdrew. Walsh let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Commander Vaykrath, thank you. No thanks necessary, Captain. The Zalreen remember their debts. And we do not forget that humanity taught us something important on that station. Sometimes the honorable choice is the illegal one. The evacuation continued through the night. Ship after ship descended and ascended, pulling people from a dying world. The ground shook harder with each passing hour. Fissures opened in the colony's streets. Buildings collapsed into newly formed chasms. With 6 hours remaining, they'd evacuated 14,000 colonists. 2,000 left, and the planet was coming apart. Captain, the colony administrator called. The primary settlement is unstable. We need to evacuate the evacuation teams, or we're going to lose people. How many colonists are still groundside? 1,800. They're scattered across emergency shelters in the outer districts. Walsh looked at the seismic data. The outer districts had maybe 3 hours before total collapse. All ships, this is Walsh. Final push. We get everyone off in the next 2 hours or not at all. The response was immediate. Every available ship dove toward the surface. The Defiance engine screamed as Bennett pushed them beyond safety limits. They landed in districts where the ground cracked beneath their landing gear, where buildings swayed like reeds in wind. People ran for the ships. Colonists and rescue crews together, sprinting through streets that tore themselves apart. Walsh stood at the cargo bay ramp and personally helped people aboard, pulling children from their parents' arms when the parents were too exhausted to climb, catching an elderly man who stumbled on the ramp. "Everyone aboard," Nguyen shouted. "We're at maximum capacity." "Check again," Walsh ordered. "We can fit more." "Sir, the ship can barely lift off as is. If we add more weight, then we add more weight. Check again." They found room for 30 more. 40, 50. People pressed together in the cargo bay until there was barely space to breathe. The Defiant groaned as it lifted off, engines straining against the overload. "Come on, girl," Bennett muttered. "Just a little further." They made it to orbit, barely. The last ships ascended as Arcturus Prime's surface finally gave way. The colony settlement collapsed into the expanding rift, buildings and streets and everything the colonists had built disappearing into the planet's mantle. If anyone had still been down there, they would have died instantly. But nobody was down there. Everyone was safe. Walsh stood on the bridge and watched the planet die, felt the weight of what they'd accomplished and what it had cost. The Council would be furious. Earth would face consequences. His career might actually end this time. Worth it. Maya approached quietly. Final count. 16,214 evacuated. 0 casualties. The extra 214, rescue personnel from other ships. Volunteers who stayed groundside to help until the last possible second. She smiled. Turns out humans aren't the only species crazy enough to risk everything for strangers. Walsh pulled up the comm to address all ships. "This is Captain Walsh to all vessels that participated in the Arcturus Prime evacuation. What we did today was illegal. It violated Council regulations and will likely result in sanctions against everyone involved. I want you to know that I take full responsibility. If anyone faces prosecution, I'll testify that I coerced your participation." "With respect, Captain," the Stormbreaker's captain replied. "Shove your responsibility. We made our own choices. We'll face our own consequences." Other captains echoed the sentiment. Humans and Zalreen, and a dozen other species, all refusing to hide behind Walsh's protection. "In that case," Walsh said, "I'm honored to have worked with you. You saved 16,000 lives today. The Council can never take that away from us." The comm channels erupted in cheers. 2 weeks later, Walsh stood before another Council emergency session. This time, the charges were more severe. This time, there was talk of permanent exile for Earth from the galactic community. Walsh didn't care. He stood in that massive chamber and told them exactly what he thought. Told them their regulations were broken. Told them their priorities were twisted. Told them that humanity would keep breaking rules as long as those rules killed people. The Council voted to censure Earth, to impose trade restrictions and limit humanity's exploration rights. And then something unexpected happened. 43 species formally protested the Council's decision. Not just the Zalreen. The Diluvians. The Torvians. Even species Walsh had never heard of. They cited the Arcturus Prime evacuation as proof that current emergency protocols were inadequate. They demanded reform. The Council tried to maintain their position. But the protests grew. More species joined. More stories emerged of emergencies where people died waiting for authorization. The political pressure became unbearable. 6 months after the station rescue, the Galactic Council passed the Emergency Response Reform Act. It wasn't everything Walsh wanted. It still had too much bureaucracy and too many loopholes. But it was a start. Ships could now respond to verified emergencies without waiting for authorization. Rescuers received legal protection for good faith humanitarian efforts. The approval process was cut from 90 minutes to 15. Not perfect, but better. Walsh received the news aboard the Defiant. They were 3 systems away, investigating a nebula that might contain habitable planets. The work continued. It always did. "So we won," Maya said. "We moved the needle," Walsh corrected. "The fight's not over. There are still 1,000 broken regulations that need fixing. Still bureaucrats who think procedure matters more than people. Still work to do, but we made progress." "Yeah, we did." Maya smiled and headed back to her station. Walsh stood alone on the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, people were living, struggling, surviving. And now, when emergencies came, they had a slightly better chance of help arriving in time. Because a few humans had refused to accept that rules mattered more than lives. Because 643 survivors had proven that compassion could triumph over bureaucracy. Because sometimes the right thing to do was the illegal thing. Walsh touched the recording device in his pocket, the one that held footage of everything that happened at the station and Arcturus Prime. The one that would be transmitted across every human colony and beyond. Let the galaxy see what humanity stood for. Let them see what happened when you told humans that saving lives was against the rules. Let them see that Earth would keep breaking rules, keep challenging authority, keep choosing compassion over compliance, no matter what it cost. The Defiance engines hummed as they prepared for the next jump. Walsh smiled. There was still so much universe to explore. So many people to help. So many rules to break. Asterisk feel name. Touch her again, the cat growled. And we'll wear your teeth as bracelets.